Okay. Social media day. Woo! Are we excited? Social media day. It's funny. I feel like people have a love-hate relationship with social media. It's either something that they love talking about or something they don't love talking about or thinking about. So anyway, either way, we're going in the deep end. My goal today, though, really is just to kind of break social media down for you guys in a way that just overcomes some obstacles and helps it not be so intimidating. Also, hopefully give you some tips for just making it more doable, because it is a mouth to feed, as we're going to talk about. I say that often to my clients, that social media is undoubtedly a mouth to feed. And so it's one of those things that it's sort of a necessary evil, but it can also be super powerful for growing your business. So there's kind of never been a more exciting time, actually, to use it for the purpose of growing a business. So we're also going to spend a little bit of time today talking about a topic that makes a lot of you squirm, I think, and that is doing video, particularly live video, to promote your business. And we're going to talk about why that's important, and how that can be a really powerful way to grow your business. And then last but not least, one of my favorite things to talk about is just this whole idea of how to promote your business without feeling smarmy. I love that word, without feeling salesy and pushy. I'm going to give you some tips for how to combat that in a big way. So first, though, like I said, I do want to just start out with kind of talking social media and basics of that and some things that I think will be helpful for you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And there we go. All right. So let's talk first kind of about why this even matters, why this is important, because there are definitely some things about it that aren't always obvious in terms of why this is important for growing your business. So the first one is brand visibility. This one's pretty obvious. So just posting consistently on social media is going to build awareness of your brand. It's going to keep you top of mind for people as they continue to kind of see you showing up in that space. So that's one reason. And also, whether we like it or not, social media, I mean, that's where many of our ideal customers are hanging out. That's where they're learning. That's where they're engaging. That's where they're connecting. So if we want to be part of that conversation, and it's way easier to be part of conversations that are already happening than to try to start them on your own, then this is the place to be. So we can't just expect people to stumble upon our website on their own or to just go there of their own accord. That's expecting too much. Doesn't happen very often, right? But if we can jump into conversations that are already happening, if we can meet our ideal customers where they already are interacting online, then we can really exponentially increase the likelihood that they're going to want to engage with us and take some action with us. So the conversation part of it is key. The next one is positioning. So social media allows us to show off our stuff, right, in a non-smarmy way, as we'll talk about, and to position ourselves as go-tos, right, in any given area, right? So by consistently posting stuff that's helpful, that's valuable, that's relevant, and engaging people in these kinds of conversations, you can position yourself as an industry leader or a thought leader or an expert in whatever your area of expertise might be. So that is a really powerful way to use social media. And then last, but definitely not least, is this whole idea of using social media to build relationships. So like we've said, people want to do business with people. That's the business we're all in, regardless of our industry, right? So social media is a great place for this. It's a great place to connect, to engage, to interact. Notice I didn't say it's all about just putting information out there, right? I said connect, engage, interact, right? You got to keep those things in mind. So too many folks use social media as a fire hose, right? They're just blasting people over and over again with information, or maybe they're looking at it as a one-way street, right? Where information goes out but doesn't come back in. And not only is this missing the point, but it's missing huge opportunity, because social media is a conversation starter. It's a relationship builder. When it's used in that way, it's powerful. And the more you can leverage that and keep that in mind, the more successful you'll be with it. And as you build relationships, you build your business, right? So as you build relationships, you build your business. So keep that in mind. All right, next I just want to give you a couple quick helpful tips, kind of best practices, things to keep in mind as you're going to be using social media to grow your business. So the first one is this: be who you are. So stay true to you and stay true to your brand. So I'm all about, you've heard me talk about researching and seeing what other people are doing, putting your eyeballs on the competitors and other people in your industry or niche. I think that's really, really smart. But I think the risk is then that we try to be someone else. We try to do what everyone else is doing. And this is not the road to go. So it's so important to be you. You want to be authentically, undeniably you, because that's what sets you apart, right? You don't want to be just like the competition because you're not. So you want to lean into who you really are. You want to lean into all that brand personality work we've talked about, the voice and the tone that you've created for your business. You want to lean into that and make sure that you're staying on brand and stewarding your brand really, really well. All right, next, you want to create content that's worth reading and sharing. This is where value is so important. I can't stress it enough. Make that your mantra, right? You want to repeat this to yourself every single time you're getting ready to put something out there. So whatever you need to do to keep it front and center, you have to remember that it's all about creating content that's worth their time. So you can't just create content for sake of creating content, right? You want to provide value. You want to focus on serving. We're going to talk about this a little more later today. And you want to dish up content that's really relevant and valuable and helpful on a regular basis. That is going to be your secret sauce. All right. Next, it's important to mix it up. So just talking about not getting stuck in a rut here, it's really easy to sort of get in this rut of always posting the same kinds of posts, the same kinds of content, the same format. It's really great to mix things up. So test out different kinds of posts to see what's best. Try to keep it interesting. You know, maybe one day you're making bold statements or asking questions, and then maybe the next day you're using images with captions or quotes or video. I mean, there's obviously lots of different kinds of content. So I'm just encouraging you to play around a little bit and to not get stuck in a rut. Often you'll see businesses where it's just like they're always posting the very same kinds of posts, and it gets to feel a little bit stale. So, and it's hard to kind of test out what's right for your audience if you're always doing the same thing. Number 4, be responsive. This is just all about monitoring your channels. So you want to be watching for interaction, watching for people who are commenting and engaging with your brand. And you want to respond really quickly. People have that expectation now that businesses are going to respond, you know, within 24 hours at the most, responding to reshares, mentions, messages, etc., within a day, if at all possible. Number 5, be consistent. So when we talked about building a brand a few weeks ago, we talked about how it's all built on trust and how consistency breeds trust. So that's why this is so important. Stewarding your brand and representing it consistently is so critical. So the same goes for social media, right? If you show up consistently, you're going to have a better chance of building rapport and relationship than if you're inconsistent or you disappear on people. It's harder for them to build a relationship with you and to trust you. So once you come up with a plan, and we'll talk about that content plan, you want to stick to it for a while and see how it goes and try to be consistent. And then lastly, it's important just to be patient. This one's hard, but you have to remember that relationships take time to build, right? And social media efforts are no different. So they're not going to pay off overnight. Relationships take time to build and nurture and grow. And it's the same thing here. So you don't want to get frustrated if you don't see your efforts paying off right out of the gate. You got to be patient and consistent, and then you will see momentum start to build. I mean, there's no magic number. I wish I could give you like a magic number of posts or followers that indicate that like you've arrived or whatever. But once you start growing a following and have a decent amount of engaging and interaction, I think you'll be surprised at how quickly things can really ramp up and impact your business. But it does take time. So you have to keep that in mind to be patient. Okay, one of the most common questions that people ask me is about the content itself. So what types of information should you be putting out there? That's what I want to talk about here next. So it's impossible, obviously, for me to tell you exactly what you should be posting on social media, because here's the key. You should be posting exactly what your target audience needs and wants to hear from you. What do they need to hear from you or want to hear from you? That's what matters more than anything when it comes to crafting your content. And obviously, that's going to differ vastly from one business to the next. But what I can do is just give you some kind of broad categories and some guidance and ideas that you can think through as you're starting to plan for your social media. So let's start with one of the most important ones. I touched on this earlier. This whole idea of sharing content that's helpful and valuable. This is key. This is so key. So you got to think about what you can share with your customers or your ideal customers that will help them solve a problem, reach their dreams, address a concern, alleviate their fears. Those kinds of things are going to be powerful when you're creating content. You also want to create content that's relevant, right? So along the same lines, I want you to think through what might be weighing heavily on their minds right now, right? Based on maybe current events or their current situation. What can you share with them that's relevant to what they're going through at this time, right? So one idea for churning out this kind of information is just to sign up for like a news aggregator or do research or something, so that when a news article or something really timely comes out that's relevant to your business, then you can jump on it while it's hot and it's trending, right? And you can add your own angle or insight around it. That's just one idea here. But this is a really great way to become part of conversations, like I said earlier, that are already happening. Watching the news, watching what's going on, paying attention to current events or seasonal stuff, for example. Like I think about Jillian and the beautiful things she's creating. And I think maybe putting content out there around, I don't know, something like the power of giving a special gift to somebody who's going through a rough holiday, right? Or talking about people who are struggling around the holidays and how just giving them a little gift can make a big difference. Or I don't know, I just made that up. But you see what I'm saying? Like tying into something that's already happening can be a great way to get traction on social media. So also, it's important to think about content that's humanistic. So when we talked about brands early on, we talked about the power of human to human connection, right? So social media is a great place to build in to these kinds of connections. And so I often encourage my clients not to be afraid to show a little bit of personality on social media, a little bit of humanistic kind of side of themselves. Obviously, that looks different client to client, and professionalism still matters, right? But there's a casual nature, there's a personable nature of social media, a personal nature that allows even the most professional of brands to show kind of this humanistic side of themselves. And that can be an extremely powerful way to grow your business and connect with people. So I think about one of my clients who's she's an executive at a nationally known company. And so being professional is of utmost importance to her, obviously, you know? So when I started working with her, she was super hesitant to post anything on social media that showed even a little bit of her personal side. So I had to do some serious prodding and convincing to get her to even dip her toe in those waters. But slowly we started testing out some of those kinds of posts that were less businessy, a little bit more personal, maybe like some pictures of her on a personal trip or talking about her favorite kind of wine or something like that. And she was really uncomfortable with it. But very quickly, we saw how much traction she got around those kinds of posts. So even fellow CEOs of top companies were reacting positively to her posts and engaging with them. I think she feared judgment, or, you know, I don't know exactly, but instead she got engagement, right? So why is that? Because humans like doing business with humans, period. That's just the way it is. So don't be afraid to show a little bit more of the behind the scenes or personal side of who you are. All right, next, it's important to champion, engage with other people on social media. So because it's such a powerful relational tool, it can be a great space for championing other people and businesses and just starting conversations. So when you give love to other companies through social media, like maybe you reshare something or retweet something, or oops, I jumped ahead. You know, it not only makes them happy and perhaps kind of builds a little bit of rapport there, but it also shows the rest of the world that you're a big-hearted person or a big-hearted company that cares about other people, and that affects how your brand is perceived, right? We talked about that halo effect a couple weeks ago. So even doing something as simple as liking or commenting on other businesses or other people's posts can go a long way in building rapport and starting a conversation. I wanted to share that because I think it's easy when we think about social media to only think about what you're putting out there, but it's a two-way street. So it's really important to be interacting on other people's streams as well. All right, the last one on here is repurpose content. So this is just something I want to share because I think it's easy to overlook this and it can make your life so much easier. So it will help you be way more efficient when you're creating content if you think about repurposing content that you already have or that you're already creating or have created. So by that I mean taking content that you have and changing it up a bit to work for different uses. So some examples, maybe you wrote a blog post for your website or a white paper or an ebook or whatever. So you can pull nuggets, like little tidbits out of whatever it is you wrote and repurpose those as social media posts. So either pushing people to that longer article or just using them as tidbits. Or maybe you did like a video interview with someone or something, and you could post snippets of the video on social media and then send people to your website to watch the full thing, right? Or maybe you had we've been talking a lot about getting professional photography taken. Maybe you had a photo shoot and you're using those pictures for your website. But think about how you might also repurpose some of those and use them for your social media stream and add captions or add posts to go along with them. So there are tons of different ways to repurpose content. And it's a really easy way to use what you already have without a ton of effort. I think it's really easy to overlook this because the content usually feels so familiar to us. Like you're sick of that blog post you wrote or that video or whatever it is, but it doesn't feel familiar necessarily to our audience. Usually it's fresh to them just because it feels old to you. I think often we don't recycle content for that very reason, but man, it's a great way to get mileage out of what you're already spending time and money on. So, okay, no matter what you put out there, I want you to ask yourself this: is what you're getting ready to share, is it worth your audience time? Is it worth their time to read? Does it provide value or insight, or will it be relevant or interesting to them, right? Is it something they might share? Keeping those questions top of mind are going to be really powerful as you start creating content. Okay, next I want to talk about kind of which channels you should be posting on. That's another really common question I get. I think businesses can get really tripped up about this, whether it's Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, Twitter, whatever. They're hoping there's like a formula or quick answer to this, but there is a quick answer. It's just not often the one that people are expecting. And that is, where is your target audience? Where are they on social media? You got to find that out if you don't know it already. So do some digging, do a survey, whatever you need to do to find out. So I've heard before marketers give the advice of, you should pick whatever social media channel you're really proficient in, or that you really love, or you're already really active on. And that's, what you should run with when it comes to promoting your business. I disagree completely with that advice. I mean, it's a lovely thought, but it doesn't make sense from a marketing perspective to me. So, I mean, for example, if you hate Snapchat, I hate Snapchat, but your target audience loves Snapchat and that's where they're hanging out, you need to put on your big girl pants and learn how to love Snapchat. Okay, maybe you'll never learn to love it, but you need to learn how to use it, right? And the beauty of social media is that right now there are tons of tutorials online, for learning, like lots of free helps online to learn different social media channels, that you can learn the ropes quickly usually. And so, it's easy to be intimidated by a new channel, but usually it's not that hard to get up to speed. Or if you don't want to learn it yourself, you can usually find a reasonably priced admin or a volunteer even, or a student or somebody who's really proficient and likes using that channel, and get them to either teach you or to do the postings for you. But the bottom line is you have to be where your people are. There's no excuse. You have to be there. Okay. And I mean, I think another thing too, just to set your mind at ease about it, I guess, is that you don't have to be everywhere. I think that is a temptation of thinking like, I have to be on every channel. But I mentioned last week, I think, that when it comes to social media and lots of other things, I preach quality and consistency over quantity, right? So if you stretch yourself too thin and you're trying to be everywhere, you're going to likely burn out and end up really being nowhere because you're not able to give your best and to keep up the pace. And so I would start by figuring out where your people are and then what's manageable for you. So maybe pick the 1 to 2 channels where you're confident that your ideal customer is hanging out, and give those your best rock star effort, right? I always recommend starting small and not biting off more than you can chew. It's all about baby steps. It's all about quality and consistency. So I want you to keep those things in mind as you're making these decisions about where you're going to be and how often you're going to post. So speaking of how often you're going to post, that's another really common question that I get. Are there perfect days to do it? Is there a magic number? Again, the answer, like so many things, is it depends, right? Especially on who your audience is. But here are some good kind of rules of thumb, or just at least things to keep in mind. Like I said, it depends on your audience. So you can Google all kinds of statistics about when are the best times to post on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, right? And some of that is valid, right? There is research around these things. So for example, LinkedIn traffic is higher during the week than it is on weekends, right? But overall, when it comes to these kinds of decisions, it really does depend back on your audience. So you got to do some research, figure out not only where these people are hanging out on social media, but when they tend to be the most active. And you might have to start with an educated guess, right? If you can't actually do research around it. But I mean, you think about it, it's going to look different maybe for CEOs than it does for stay-at-home moms in terms of when they're on and where they're on, those kind of things. So different groups of people have different patterns of social media activity. And it's not a perfect science. I mean, it's just not a perfect science. So there's going to be variation amongst your ideal customers as to when they're online. But you can do some basic research like surveying or just informal asking or watching online people who are your ideal clients to just give the timing piece your best shot. Sometimes it's all about giving it your best shot and then testing, like we'll talk about at the end. So the second thing that's helpful to do is to create a plan and stick to it. So I'm going to talk about content plans here in a moment, but the important thing here is just that you find out what works for you and give it a go, right? So think through how much time you have to commit to social media, how much horsepower you have. Like I said, I tell people to remember this is a mouth to feed. So you got to figure out realistically what you can take on, what you can handle. So once you've identified which channels you're going to be active on, make a commitment, commit to a certain number of posts and when you'll plan on deploying them, and then stick to it as much as you can, which is the next one. Be consistent to breed trust and just start slowly building that rapport and connection with people. So I think that goes a really long way. And then lastly, just once you started cranking out content, wherever that might be, keep a watchful eye. See what days and times tend to get more interaction, right? Look at your posts and see which times of day are getting the most likes, shares, comments, and see if you can identify some patterns. And then try new things, mix it up and see what happens. So much of marketing is just testing, adjusting, and then repeat, right? So much of it is about adjusting as you go. So that's something to keep in mind too. You don't really fall into a sweet spot. And I think once you feel like you get it all figured out, then things change. So it's just a process. So keep in mind, it's always a process. So, okay, last I want to look at kind of this whole idea about how do you do this? What are the nuts and bolts of actually getting this done, right? It's what we all want to know. What's the magic formula? Unfortunately, there's not a magic formula, but here are some things to keep in mind. So the first step is to really figure out your horsepower, right? So who's actually going to do this work for your business? Is it you? Is it someone else, right? I think people tend to underestimate how much time and effort social media can take. It is very doable and it's not terribly hard, but it does take time and effort. So I know lots of entrepreneurs who run their own social media efforts, especially when they're just starting out. But I also know lots of people who outsource their social media, and that's another option worth considering. So there are lots of great freelancers out there, virtual assistants, people who love doing this kind of thing. There are interns, volunteers. There's just lots of avenues for outsourcing it. And, you can always do trade as well. We've talked about finding a professional who you can maybe do trade with. So that's something else to keep in mind. But really the first step is to be realistic about how much time you have to commit to this or you want to commit to this, and then figuring out how you're going to get that done. The second one here is to stick to a plan. So having a content plan probably sounds a lot fancier than it really is. All I mean by this is choosing the channels you're going to be active on, be it Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever. Identify the kinds of content you want to post, and then commit to it, right? Commit to the days, the times, the number of posts you're going to aim for, and then write this down, like physically write this down in a plan. I strongly recommend creating a plan like this, because what happens often is that we just sort of do it willy-nilly, like when we think about it or when we feel like it or remember to do it. That doesn't work in the long run. I promise. I've tried it. I have tried it. And, I've seen lots of clients do this too, where they just kind of wing it. And it just never serves them well. And it's hard to get traction that way. So I would encourage you to, however big or small, make a commitment to a plan and then try to stick to it. Because again, consistency and quality trump quantity. So that means you want to be strategic in your actions, choosing days and times and channels where you think you're going to get the best bang for your buck, right? Then committing to it, right? And writing it down and stick to it. I would so much rather see you guys or see my clients create a few killer posts a week. By killer, I just mean well thought out, interesting, high quality, whatever, than to be constantly blanketing a bunch of channels with poorly crafted, not compelling, not strategic content, or just being really inconsistent. So kind of goes back to the horsepower thing. Figure out what's realistic and then do your best darn job at getting that done on a regular basis. Also, you can consider using a scheduling tool. I just want to put that on your radar. Some of you may not be familiar, but you can manually post on social media, which just means literally typing the post real time and posting it, or you can preload a bunch of posts into a scheduling tool. So, and then they deploy as you've scheduled them to come out. So there are lots of different ones out there. I feel like every day there's a new one, but I've listed a few that you could look into here. So this might not be something that you want to jump into right away, especially if you get tripped up by tech stuff. It can be overwhelming, but I just want to put it on your radar because they can be super helpful, super time saving down the road, and can help you really be more consistent in your efforts, sort of keeping you online. So the last one here goes along with that in terms of just efficiency and keeping consistency. A helpful way to do content creation is to batch your efforts. So instead of writing posts like when you have a moment or when you're thinking about it, I would definitely recommend that you carve out decent chunks of time in your calendar, specifically for the purpose of working on your social media. Put it in your calendar, just like a meeting or anything else. It's going to ensure that you actually get it done, and it's going to help you be so much more efficient because you can really get your head into the game, right? And you get into sort of a working rhythm. It's easier to write 20 posts than to write all at once than to try to write 20 posts sprinkled throughout your week. You're going to be faster and better if you're doing them all at once. So I highly recommend batching this job and putting it in your calendar. I also recommend having some sort of idea bank document, like a place where you are writing down ideas as they come to you, right? You can have ideas come to you for social media posts in all kinds of random places, and it's critical to capture them as soon as you can, because otherwise you're going to forget. So I use Evernote or a Google Doc. You can use a journal, whatever you want to do, that as you have ideas come to you, put them down. And then when you sit down to batch your content, you've got a whole inspiration document ready to pull from. So it's a really smart thing to do if you haven't already done that. So, okay, I want to jump off social media before we run out of time, and I want to talk about video. I love it. Video is the best. Okay, so I know what you're thinking, especially when it comes to live video. A lot of you probably are cringing at this thought. Yeah, Rhonda's like covering her screen. She's going to throw up. Trust me, I get it. I get it, you guys. I grew up as a raging introvert who avoided the camera, still or video, at any cost. Even as a young adult in the working world, I remember trying to weasel my way out of several video projects because the thought of being on camera made my stomach hurt. And even now, as someone who's far more extroverted than I used to be, I still get nervous, really nervous when it comes to public speaking or being on camera. So why do I mess with it? Why do I bother with it in my business? It is simple. I have seen firsthand the incredible power of video. Like, there are lots of statistics, and we'll talk about some of those as well. But firsthand, especially in the last couple of years, I have seen the traction, and I've learned that if I want to grow my business, I can't ignore video. I just can't. So here are some statistics that I want you to kind of take hold of, especially those of you that might be quick to dismiss video as an option. So the first one, online videos will account for more than 80% of all consumer internet traffic by 2020. That's crazy pants. Also, over 3/4 of marketers and small business owners, they see results. That doesn't surprise me at all. Like, they see concrete results when they employ video marketing in their mix. Also, 85% of businesses now have internal staff and resources to do video in-house because they're seeing the importance of it and the return on investment. Also, over 8 billion videos or 100 million hours of videos are watched on Facebook every day. On YouTube, that number is 500 million hours every day. What? That's crazy. Facebook users comment 10 times more on live videos than regular videos, static videos. And also 4 times as many consumers would rather watch a video about a product than read about it. So those are just some interesting statistics that some of these are a year or two old, so they're even more compelling now, I guarantee. And then just beyond the statistics, like, there are some things here that I want you just to think about. The first is that video builds face-to-face connection. Goes back to what we were talking about over and over again. People are craving that authentic personal connection. And video is a great tool for building this. I think more and more our society is struggling with people feeling isolated and disconnected, right? Ironically, technology and social media play into this, right? But the more this craving for emotional and personal connection grows, and I believe it's growing exponentially right now in our society, the more that video is going to be compelling to people because it has the capacity to build that face-to-face personal connection. Also, it's a trust builder, right? So the whole face-to-face video nature allows people to kind of see the person or the people behind a business. It lets people put a face to a name, so to speak, right? And so that can build credibility and trust with your ideal customer before they even step foot in your door or ever engage with you or go to your website or whatever that next step is. They already feel like they know you or know your business without having ever taken steps with you. So that's a pretty powerful thing about video. Also, video is memorable, right? It sticks in people's brains, often way better than words or even pictures. I can't tell you how many times people have surprised me by saying like, oh yeah, I love when you did that in your video. And it might've been from months ago or something I did last year, which I like, to me, this is shocking, right? Because I've not done anything crazy or something that would be super memorable in my opinion. But it's true, the highly visual nature, the personal nature, the emotional nature of video allows it to be extremely memorable. And when it comes to growing a business, this is really good news for us, right? We want to be top of mind. We want people to remember. We want our brand to be sticky. Also, video is a massive organic reach expander. So we touched on this briefly last week, but social media channels, right, are rewarding video when it comes to who they show your post to, especially live video. The reason they're doing this is because that's what consumers are eating up, right? They want to keep their customers happy. And so the channels want to keep their customers happy. So they expand the reach, meaning they put live video posts in front of more people as opposed to static posts, right? Does that make sense? So for example, the stats last year, I think these are from last year, were that a Facebook video receives on average 135% more organic reach than a Facebook photo. So basically Facebook is rewarding video over any kind of static post. They're going to show it to way more people as a result. I would guess that percentage is even higher now as marketers are expecting this to just keep trending as the demand for video increases by consumers. So unless you want to shell out a bunch of money on paid advertising and social media, right? Video is the way to go. It's the way to go. It's a way to kind of, I don't want to say beat the system, but it's a way to feed into what the algorithms and what the social media channels are already doing as far as organic reach. So, all right. If you're terrified at the thought of doing this, and I totally get that, here's what I will tell you. It gets easier. It gets easier with practice. I would encourage you to start by just shooting a bunch of non-live videos on your phone. Just use your phone and shoot some videos of yourself talking about your business. You don't have to show it to anyone, right? But practice getting comfortable on camera. Watch yourself on the replay and watch your body language for signs of nervousness or, you know, like bouncing your leg, or in my case, spinning in my chair. I used to shoot these videos, you guys, and I would find myself like spinning in my chair. You know, watch for time filler or nervous statements like or everyone has like their own tics. I am constantly fixing my hair, which is my thing. So you probably noticed that. So look for things like that that might be distracting. Look for things that you can hone or get better at, right? Another way that you could kind of practice this or test it out would be to set up a private Facebook group with a friend, or even if you want to practice in our group, go live in there and ask people for feedback. It's not only a great way to get feedback, but it does just help you get comfortable with the process. So it's a great way to just practice. And the more you practice, the more confident you will be, and the better you'll get at it. So I promise you'll get more comfortable with it. It's still not something I love doing, but I am so much more comfortable and confident than the first couple of times I thought I was going to throw up. The first couple of times I did it. And you know, the other things to keep in mind, especially when you're doing live video, is that no one expects perfection on live video. They just don't. In fact, live videos that are a little too perfect, a little too polished, usually walk that fine line of feeling pushy, or maybe not pushy, but inauthentic, right? People are drawn to just normal, everyday people, and so they don't expect perfection. I will say, you know, because I think the caveat is like, you still want to be professional and you still want to use good techniques and lighting and be, thoughtful in your messaging and things like that. In fact, this week, I'm going to share a resource in our group with some great tips for doing social media video, but I just don't want you to worry about getting it perfect, because that'll stop you from ever doing it in the first place. So, okay, last but not least today, I want to hit on one of my favorite topics, like I said, and that's how to avoid the SMARM factor. So being worried that as you're promoting your business, being worried that you're coming across as too salesy or annoying or smarmy, this seems to be nearly a universal concern for entrepreneurs. I hear it over and over again. Most of us worry about this, and I think it can be a huge barrier to growing your business. If you're so consumed about coming across that way, then we tend to under promote ourselves or be afraid to do it at all. So I think it's worth talking about, and I want to give you guys some tips for really combating this. And that should say 6 ways, not 5, because I added one at the last minute. But I want to give you 6 ways that you can really go against this and try to move past it. So I know you guys have all seen those people on social media, right? Who are super pushy, they're super salesy, they might even come across as obnoxious or self-centered. They annoy us, right? It's annoying. They make us cringe a little bit and roll our eyes. And the chances that we'd ever buy from them or engage with them are slim to none, right? Because that kind of personality is just really off-putting. So, whether that's a mom like selling scented candles or leggings, or a local business that's just going gangbusters with their smarmy promotions, it really doesn't work, and they're shooting themselves in the foot, right? And even worse than that, I think it makes the rest of us terrified about self-promotion on social media because we have a bad taste in our mouths. And those kinds of folks are usually the ones who come to mind when we think about doing it ourselves, right? And we're terrified that the people watching or seeing us are going to feel that same yuckiness, that same sort of repulsion or annoyance that we feel when we see those people. So that's the concern, right? And so I want to give you some specific things you can do to push past this. So the first one is to just not let yourself give in to that fear, right? I want you to really identify, like, what is it you're afraid of? What is it that that you're believing that's making you worried that you're going to come across that way? Because you are not the annoying, salesy, pushy, ridiculous person you have in your mind. Like, you're just not. You are better than that, and you're not going to go about promoting your business that way. You're going to do it in a much, much better way. So you just have to not let your own insecurities or fears or annoyance at smarmy marketers get in the way. That's the first thing. The second one is to just be authentic. It's really hard to come across as insincere if you're being yourself, if you're being authentic and transparent, if you're being your honest, real self. It's hard to come across as smarmy. So that doesn't mean you have to overshare or be unprofessional, but it just means you need to strive for integrity. You need to strive for being true to who you are and to be relatable. That's going to go a really long way. The third one is something I like to call the 1/4 rule. So I like to tell my clients to lean into this. When you're posting on social media, if you want to think about it this way, you can limit what I would call hard sells, direct sell promotion. So direct asking for people to buy from you. I would limit that to 1/4 of your content, right? Then the rest of the time, I would focus mostly on just serving people, on providing helpful, relevant, related content that's more selfless coming across, if that makes sense. This is not a hard and fast formula, but I think it's a good rough guideline just to keep in mind as you're providing value. Because if people are consistently seeing posts where you're asking for them to buy all the time, or to call or to email or whatever the engagement step is, it can feel a little bit like pushy and smarmy. And so just thinking about striving for balance, and direct sales are great. We all have to put direct sale, like requests for that out there, but doing it less often than not can be a helpful way to have balance. So, all right, number 4, remember that when it comes to social media, you have not locked people in a room and you're not forcing them to listen to your business spiels, right? If they're seeing your content regularly, they have likely chosen to follow you on whatever channel it would be. So chances are they like you, or they are interested in what you have to offer. They need what you have to offer, right? And if they're not, they'll just unfollow you or block your content or whatever. And that's all good. You can't take it personally. So you've probably done the same thing yourself when somebody is promoting something. If you're not interested, you're just going to unfollow or whatever, which is great. Like, there's no need for you to see that content. So you're so much less likely to annoy somebody who's voluntarily chosen to be in front of your content. I mean, the same thing goes from email. If they're on your email list, they've chosen to be on your email list, right? And if they want to hop off, they can hop off. So you just have to remember that, I think, on social media, that if people don't want to watch your content, they'll find ways to not watch your content. All right, the 5th one is to practice. So the more you practice, same thing with when I talked about video, the more you're going to start feeling comfortable. So you want to start feeling comfortable promoting your business. And the more you practice, the more you'll get there. So you'll start to get into a groove. You'll start to relax. And when that happens, it will start to feel more natural, and you will start to come across more naturally, more authentically. The more your confidence increases, the easier it is to just be yourself and build those connections and relationships. So this is the one that I added at the last minute, because I think that there's so much value in just practicing, and you're going to be more comfortable, and people are going to sense that and feel that. I think often when we're nervous, we get uptight, and we can come across as more smarmy if we're being very robotic and uptight and things like that. So practicing is going to help and go a long way in this. So number 6, be generous. This is the most important one. We've talked about it before. It is really hard, if not impossible, to see someone as generous and smarmy at the same time. It just doesn't equate. So if your focus is on serving, if your focus is on serving your audience first, promoting your business second, it's almost impossible to come across as smarmy. And also, when you think about selling, it doesn't have to always feel like selling. So for example, think about how you can reframe something so that it's also, beneficial or helpful to your audience, right? Like maybe you're giving away some really helpful piece of advice or top tips or whatever, but it's all for free and there's no string, there are no strings attached. And then maybe, you end up offering a little more after that. And maybe that is a paid product or service for those who want to pay for that. But that's just an example of selling doesn't have to always feel like selling. You're building a relationship. So if you keep your focus there, if you keep your focus on serving, then it won't feel like you're selling, right? So I like this quote from, he's an author blogger, Brian Salas, but I think it's just such a good reminder that we're in the business of people here. We are in the business of people. It's not about the technology. It's about the relationship building. It's about the connections and all those things we've talked about. You have to keep that in mind. You have to always keep that in mind, that you're here, you're on social media to connect with and to serve people. That framing of how you do social media, and really that framing of how you do business in general, will keep your heart and head kind of in the right space and elevate everything you do. It will elevate everything you do. So I want to end on that note, and let's quickly do our action steps for the week. So this one's pretty straightforward. I would encourage you just to create that plan that I mentioned earlier. Create a simple content plan, meaning commit to which channels you're going to be active on, how many posts you want to post, and what kinds of posts, what categories of posts that you're going to do, and physically write that out or type it out so that you've got a document that you can refer to. And also, as you're thinking through what kinds of categories of content, I meant to put this in the slides and I forgot, but on my website, on dropleaf.co, on the homepage, there is a download that there's a free download that it's an inspiration worksheet for social media. So that's something that might be helpful. I can post a link in the Facebook group, but that might be a helpful place to start, just to get your mind around what kinds of content you might want to start putting out there. So, okay, real quick, I will stop my share. A little bit of housekeeping stuff before I see if you guys have any questions. Next Thursday at noon, so back to our normal time at noon Eastern Standard Time, is our final live teaching session. So we're going to tackle what steps you need to take to launch your business right out of the gates, to launch well. That's what we're going to talk about in our final session. So in the meantime, in between now and then, would be a great time to catch up on any teaching sessions you've missed, or ask any burning questions in Facebook. Let us give you feedback and assistance as a group. And then also wanted you to get on your calendars. I will hold a final live office hour on Monday. That's December 10th, from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will put this in the Facebook group as well, so you don't have to write it down. But I've tried to mix up the times as much as I could, so that we've had some morning stuff, some evening stuff, some midday stuff, so that people with different schedules. So hopefully some of you who maybe haven't been able to be at any of those before can show up on Monday from 4 to 5 Eastern Standard Time. So also, just to encourage any of you who have fallen behind or who haven't kept up with the week-to-week stuff, please still feel free to come to that office hour and ask questions. There's no requirement that you are on the same page as everybody. There are no dumb questions. And so come with any questions. You can stay the whole time if you want, or you can just pop in and ask your question whenever you get a chance, and then pop back out. So that will be in this same Zoom room that we meet for all of our weekly teaching. But again, I will post the time and I will post the link for you guys in our Facebook group. So, okay. Anybody have questions for me before we hop off?
Okay, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You were talking about under getting it done. You said you could do it yourself or outsource.
Yep.
And then you talked about content and writing the content. What can you outsource? They can make your website, but they can't answer the post, hopefully, because it's yours to answer.
Yeah,
So
no,
what things?
that's a great question. Yeah, that's a really great question. So you can outsource lots of different parts of it. So I usually encourage people like A, to think about what's your budget, and B, what are the things that you are really good at doing or like doing. So for example, for me, I love writing the posts because I'm a writer and I'm good at that. And that's what I love doing, right? So that's going to be lower on my outsource list as far as I have outsourced some of that before. But for me, design is a big one because anymore having beautiful images, branded images, those kinds of things can really give you a boost as a social media marketer. So outsourcing the design of the photos or the selection of the photos or the design of the posts can be one really cool thing to outsource. And there are some great tools like Canva that, you can find college students who love using Canva or, an intern or, whatever. All the way up to freelancers and agencies, right? And so design is a great thing to outsource. Content is certainly a great thing to outsource. The actual scheduling and population is often something that people outsource. So finding an admin or, again, a college student or somebody who will take your images and your words and schedule them or deploy them for you so that you don't have to do that.
What does that mean?
Huh? Say that again.
Is that to post them intermittently, or what does that mean?
Yep, that literally means to push them out there. So that could be doing it manually, or it could be often it's when people are loading them into a scheduling tool, like I mentioned, and pushing them out that way. What you said earlier about engagement, like monitoring for engagement, definitely, oftentimes people will hire someone to monitor for engagement. Sometimes you do have people for you that will respond. Now, this has to be somebody who is super close to you and super involved in what you're doing, so they know the ins and outs of your business, the tone. That is more common when it's somebody on staff. Does that make sense? Like an actual employee who really knows and who you trust, and they've got that level of insight and expertise to know how you would want to respond to a situation. But oftentimes you just have somebody who monitors for you, and they can notify you like, hey, Rhonda, somebody sent you a message, or you need to respond to this. How would you like me to respond to this, or whatever? That's really common as well. So those are some of the different kinds of outsourcing. Often too, like in the past, I have been brought in for clients just to develop a plan for them. So I will come in as a contractor and say, okay, here's, what you should be doing on social media. Here's the strategy we're going to take. Here's the angle we're going to take. Here are the types of content we're going to encourage you to be posting. And so sometimes you can outsource just the strategy or the planning before you actually dive in. So that's something that's pretty common too. So all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So I would encourage you to think about the stuff that is either hardest for you to do, or you have the least interest in doing, or skill or whatever, and go from there. So sorry, Amber, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. I have something that I created not too long ago that I want to share with you guys, and let me know if you're interested in it, because I can create a force copy. It's through Google Sheets is how I made it. Let me flip my camera around. So I created this Google Sheet, and you can see here that across I can't really see. Hold on a second.
It's super hard to see.
Yeah, I'm trying to like zoom in, but I can't really see. Okay, so like you can see for the different days of the week what it is I'm going to post, and then for what different places. So like on Instagram, this is in my Facebook group. Here is for my Burned In Teacher Facebook page only.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yep.
So then I have my images here, and then under it the text that I'm going to post. So like I plan this the week before, and then down here at the bottom, all I do is I make a copy, or I just duplicate that worksheet, and then start all over for the next week. So if you guys want me to, I already actually have one that I've kind of totally cleaned out. And I can just, if you have a Google account, then I can force copy this and put it into the Facebook group, and then you can make a copy and use it if you'd like.
That'd be awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's so smart to have a content calendar like that, so that at a glance, you've got everything there. And you could even have a tab if you don't in there for an idea bank. So it's all like in one spot. So thank you so much for offering that. That's a great tool.
You're welcome.
All right, you guys. Social media. Are we feeling itchy about it or excited? It's all good. Like I said, it's a mouth to feed, but it's not rocket science. It is so not rocket science. It just takes some consistency and effort. So, okay, I will post the replay video later today and the slides. And also, like I said, I've got some good resources for you this week that'll be helpful as we keep learning about this stuff. And Kelly did ask if we have a favorite mic for videos. I do not have a favorite mic, but Amber, I know you've got some podcast mics. Maybe we can just post some things in the Facebook group this week.
I will. I'll get on Amazon and I will post the 2 mics that I've purchased through there.
Yep.
Because I have one that's a clip-on, and then I have one that's an actual like microphone.
Awesome. Yep. Great question, Kelly. That's a great question. All right, you guys, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. We'll see ya. Bye.
Bye.